and the video for this part one of this painting is now on YouTube for you all. So if you do find anything dries too dry, as long as it's bone dry, you can put more colour on top. If you want to obviously fill the entire shape exactly the same as before, then of course you would have to make sure you go right up to the edges as if you were doing a glaze. But I could equally say, well, actually, I want to start putting a bit of texture in here. You could say, right, I'm going to paint the top bit with water, but I'm then going to introduce a bit of colour down here. So I could start to make this mountain uneven, or just more, you know, more of the hills or the rocks are going across. It's really personal choice as to what you would like to do with this painting. What we're going to do at the moment is we're going to move on. We are ready now to start working, perhaps a little bit, if you need to do some tweaking to mountains, we do that. But what I'm going to concentrate on today is doing this colouring and starting to bring it down. And then we're going to be mixing up a sort of dark, very dark colour to get these mountain edges to stand up the way that we want to. But our first step is to do along here, along the back here, because if you look at my reference, it's stark and very white, okay? And that's another reason why this edge at the moment is shouting up at me. But I think as soon as I put this wash on, it's going to visually knock back. So the colour that I'm going to mix up, I'm going to be looking at my photographic reference. I am looking at it and I'm thinking, well, it's a warm grey. It's a grey colour in it, but because we've got the reflection of the sunset in the water, we've got those hints of orange or peachy colours that we can, terracotta colours that we can see, which I already started to make a suggestion on my paper, which when I'm looking at my laptop, I'm seeing this is all white. It's not. I've actually got some colour in here. But I don't think you guys can see that, unfortunately. But so what we will be doing is mixing up a colour. So this colour that I've got here, okay, I want you on a scrap piece of paper is to mix up some colour. So this is Payne's Grey with a bit of Indian yellow added to it to warm it up a little bit, okay. So we're basically using the same sort of colour in the mountains with a bit of warmth in it, okay. It's up to your artistic license. So just remember to keep repeating the same colours that you've already started using. So I've been using, I've been using Indian yellow, been using Windsor yellow, I've been using Opera Rose, I've been using Quinipajone magenta, and I've been using Payne's Grey and French ultramarine and a little bit of violet. Or is it Windsor purple? No, it's called Windsor Violet, okay? So those are sort of the colour ranges that I've been using. You could, if you wanted to say, well, actually, I want to have a bit of, I don't know, alizarin to mine to make it more plummy colour, aubergine sort of colours, or make mine a bit more brown or rich colour. So I'm going to be adding some burnt sienna or sepia to it. So it's really up to you. But what I would say is you want to make sure that you're echoing or repeating the same colours that we've been using so far. In the bottom half of the painting. All right. So usually when we're looking at reflections, there's not that much shimmering on the water. There's a lightness to it, but if you think of water as if it was extreme sunlight, sometimes it looks like you can get real sparkles on the water. It's up to you when you want to put that in, but my plan is I am going to get a brush. I've mixed up my got a colour that I'm happy with. And you can have a practice on just a scrap bit of paper on the side. Okay, so here we are. Matter one more colour. Okay. So this brush is fairly dry, and what we're going to do is we're going to scrape across. And can you see just by scraping, we get a nice mark. Because we don't particularly want to. We don't want to overload our brush, because if I overload it now, look, it's really wet. Okay, so this is a really wet brush now because I've wetted it, and now when I wipe it, can you still? Can you see the difference? So if I put a lot of water on my brush, I get a solid filled in line. Because I want it to look a bit more interesting, I'm going to have my brush or dab it off on the flannel or a bit of kitchen paper so that this is a really quite dry brush, it's damp. And now when I flick it across lightly, I can get more streaks with it. Can you all see that? All under that? So that is the effect that I am going to go for. And it's not something that you can repeat. Once it's on, it's on. Okay. So then if you mix up your warmish grey, okay, put it on a scrap bit of paper. Let's watch it dry. So I'm not pre-wetting the surface. And then once it's dry, take it to your painting or have a look at your reference and say, is that grey dark enough? Is it the correct sort of grey that I am looking for? Because you don't really want to have to go back and apply a second layer. And I'm going to start at the top and just keep working down. And have a go. This one is a square brush, a chisel brush that I've literally been holding flat on its side and scraping. But equally, have a go with a rounded one. Here's a round one. This is not one of my synthetic ones. This is one of the Rosemary & Co. rounded ones that's been cut. And just have a go and see, well, you know, what works best on my scrap bit of paper. Do I use a rounded brush? You see, there's a rounded brush. Or do I use my square chisel brush? Well, if you look at those two, there's not a lot of difference because both of my brushes are quite bone dry, but I'm really holding and really scraping them flat against the paper. All right, does that help you? So I'm going to start putting mine on. I'm going to hold it flat. And I'm just going to start scraping across. Oh, hang on, a bit more. Tiny bit of water. So it's a very dry brush. Just really dragging it up. I'm trying to touch the surface lightly as I possibly can. That's what I'm trying to really catch it and touch the surface as light as I possibly can. So this is dry paper. Okay, and I've got a little bit of sparkle there, so I quite like that. Now down here, the colour's starting to change even more. So I'm now going to start to change the colour. Okay, so those colours are my Indian yellow and my quinacridone magenta, and it's sort of looking dirty. It is looking quite brown actually. And I'm going to jump down to the bottom. I might add a bit more. I can see a couple of colours, so I'm going to really try and get this nice terracotta-ish sort of colour that I can see. And then we've got a colour that almost looks, in the centre, it's looking quite golden on my reference photo. So I am thinking I might do a very, very weak wash with my yellow and my ochre, because I want to make it look quite bright. And ochre rose is a brilliant colour for making things glow and making things look really quite bright. So if we do the ochre rose and the Windsor yellow together, we're going to get that very pale peachy colour, and it's going to look pretty bright, which is what we're after. And because the sea looks really pale, we don't really need to put much on. So that is coming across there. Like that. And into there. Yep, so it's really quite pale along there. So you can, I put on a bit of water there because I want this to be streaky. I did put some water on there, and then I also put on some colour. And then I'm going to add a bit more yellow, windsor yellow, and with a tiny touch again of the opera rose, because we want to keep it quite bright and quite light looking. And I'm just basically going to streak this on. It's just catching. And I might bring it up a little bit into there. It's just touching in there. And then this bit here doesn't really exist, does it? This is where doesn't really matter really. I could put a bit in there, I suppose. This is where it's getting strong. In there. So I'm just gonna, so as I say, all I'm really doing is just looking at my reference photo. I suppose there's at some point where you could actually throw your reference photo, well, not throw it away, but stop looking at it, I suppose. And at this point, you probably ought to concentrate and look at your painting so you can decide where you want some little marks to be, little suggestions to be. And as I say, don't be afraid to scratch things with your fingernails, or if you feel you see the way you want it, you can start to get the properties coming through. But now that this is going to dry up here, if you decide you want to run it up where you've had the little streaks, once it's bone dry, you can put a little bit of the golden yellow or peach colour in the top just to catch it, so it just connects to the colours down below. So I'm just doing that now. It just gives it that slight hint of warmth. Just by dragging it. And a little bit more grey down here actually. Yeah. Yeah, so this doesn't have to be exact, you just do little wiggles, because this is where all the that's the tides going out, I'm not sure. This is normally where the trees would be, but which I've not bothered to put in. So this bit, yeah, this bit here is blocking. All right. So I've coloured all my colours in, and they're just settling now. So my next stage is to go down to a small brush, because this was quite a big brush, number 14. So my next plan, now that I've done all of those colours, is to start picking out. There's some stones in here, and because this photograph is so strong, we can't really see any information on the rock formations or anything like that. So we can use it to, so we're going to have to use our imagination to want to. So you've got several options here. The first option is to perhaps mix up a purpley grey with a tiny brush. We're going to start to just do tiny little dots and dashes to represent some of the stones. if you wanted to, I might do that. I can start to suggest a few for you. Is you can start to do the occasional sort of lines and then soften them, so you can start to get some more uneven colour. So some areas would be dark. So what I'm trying to do is imagine giving a suggestion of the rocks and the sort of cliffy, rough, stony surface that we can see on the bank here. So you can start to put in another layer over the top, and then and then a final tweak here, and then that is essentially it all finished. I'm now going to start to mix up my strong dark colour and for the rock formation, and I was going on the sort of slightly bluey purpley spectrum. By having these colours more purpley, or even just warming them up slightly by adding perhaps some more magenta or a bit of alizarin, something like that. You've got, as I say, you've always got several options. But the cool colours of the blues will always recede into the distance. So if we keep the foreground quite warm and perhaps make it slightly more textured, it's also going to help it visually come forward. Okay, now I'm just deciding what colour I'm going to go for. So what have we got? Yeah. So what I'll be doing is going down past my brush, picking up my colour. Once you've decided what colour you've got, and then just doing some little streaks. Actually, this is. I'm going to try and break this up because that is pretty solid. So I'm just sort of doing scribbling marks, I suppose. And where you think that's not quite right, I'm just going to soften it with water. So we're starting to get more broken textures, especially in the foreground. I have mixed up, it sort of looks slightly purpley aubergine colour, so I've been mixing it using my quinacridone magenta, yellow, and then I've added the Payne's grey and the blue. So I'm really repeating all of the colours that you can already see in the painting, just completely repeating them all again. That's it. Just to keep it all uniform. Okay, and then this bit here is where my painting finishes. So that bit would be where the trees are. So I might crop my painting a bit higher up because I've got too much in here. So where you've got this warmer colour, now let's thinking because of the way that the land is, we're going to get a darker edge to our land at the bottom than we are at the top. So I would be doing, because I want to get some texture, sort of doing a combination of flicking and dragging with my fingers. So I'm beginning to give suggestion of unevenness. It's entirely up to you. I think you trying to sort of use my imagination really, just to try and think how I'd get streaks and things. So I'm sort of putting it on really lightly, and then where there's a harsh edge, you could almost smear it or dab it with your fingers. So we're starting to get the roughness that we want. It's educated guesswork, I suppose you could say, until you decide, yeah, I like that, and then just leave it. that little bit more broken. I think I'm going to go up here at the top here and amend that mountain. I'm not quite happy with that. And we've got dots here and a streak there actually, which I'll have to make darker. I'll have to go down across my brush. And then I guess now it's probably time of you just doing flicking a few little bits of these little stones on. I don't like this edge here, so you can just, use your artistic license to say what what bits do I like, what bits don't look right, and just flick them around until they work. So, don't like that edge there, so I'm going to make my mountain a bit bigger. There you go. And if, as I say, some of these stones start to dry and you think, oh, they're a bit too light, then just go back on the top. But what I'm doing is it's a very small brush now. It's quite a fine brush that I am looking at and deciding what textures I'm going to put on it to make it right. So I'm going to tweak this mountain here now. I'm just going to pick up a blue colour, bluish purplish colour. I think, right, okay, I think I'm going to make, yeah, I'm going to make that colour a bit darker there. And then what I can do is just soften this with water. So now I'm just dragging it up with water. And I'm going to make this a dark. So this is what I'm saying is when you have a mountain, you decide you want it to look a bit more uneven. The colours would be darker at the bottom because we've got to think about how the try and suggest it a bit more. Bit there. So this is very much sort of more of a mottled or uneven mountain there. So it's going to give it more of the mountains. So in the distance, these ones are very much flat in tone, very flat, very flat. Now we're getting more texture. And again, I could repeat this effect that I've just done, this one in the foreground, so which is looking quite bluish and quite purple. So this is how you can tweak your mountains if you decide you're not quite happy with that, just want to tweak it a bit more. So I can just say, right, I'm going to put a bit and a bit in that one there. And I'm getting my water again and I'm just blending it with water. Okay, I've got it the way I want it. Right, and there you are, finished. So I won't do much more to that. I think that's practically done. I think I caught that on my hand. Equally, if you want to get more texture in this, so we've just done this purely in watercolour, but you could try things out like putting chalk pastels on top if you wanted to. You want to enjoy getting them up, making scales, so you start to get all the textures going in the way that you want. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit of a